Lucky you.
36 best
Tuned
holes in
into
golf.
Alternate Shots podcast,
Barney's Army.
where we talk about golf,
Sandy.
poker,
James Bond.
horse racing,
Double.
classic movies.
Zenyatta.
We have no script.
Down the stretch they
And
come.
we are glad you joined us.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Okay, Billy, we are back to the golf course after some hiatus. We are back to Winged Foot. Let me see. It's been a long time. Oh, yeah, we did the 7th West. What, about 2 months ago?
I think so. I like I said earlier, that it's hard to keep up with us if you're expecting some kind of order or script. It's not going to happen.
I'm keeping track through using a Winged Foot scorecard, just like we would keep track of our 6s and 7s and 4s and 3s. Occasionally we get a 4 and a 3.
Yeah,
So
you need Glenn to tell you how many putts you had on each hole.
yeah, that's right, Glenn. You know, you have to pay extra for him not to tell you. Arena. Eight is arena. And we're going to come back. I'll put some other pictures in from the tee and so forth. We've got some great pictures to show. But how about 493 yards from all the way back?
493 and a tee shot that is very difficult to manage if you don't have a cut. So for me, I'm okay because I cut it a little bit, and for the big boys, they can take it up over that tree line on the right side. But you know, it's probably the most difficult and demanding tee shot out there because there's no room for error, and even if it wasn't a difficult tee shot, there's no room for error on the hole. It's the number one handicap of the 18 on the West course for a good reason. There's a fairway bunker out there that can grab you if you're short and in the rough on the left, and many people are on the left because they're avoiding the tree line on the right. Or if you don't avoid the tree line on the right, you could be right of the tree line. You could be popped over near 16 East, and you got to punch something out, and that, you punch it out too far left, you'll come up in that bunker. So it looks like it won't be a problem, that left-hand fairway bunker. But every now and then you find out why it's there.
Well, that's the thing. If you hit it in the rough, I was there the other day and I literally had to pitch out an iron sideways because if I tried to hit something out of it, it's going to be in the fairway bunker. And I'd rather be pin high with the fairway bunker in the fairway for a third shot.
Sure.
It does require you from the whites, it's 423. So let's say you hit it 230. You still got 190 left, which is a 5-wood or a 3 hybrid for most people, right? In the 10, 8, 10. But going back, that who was the guy? Was it Sam Snead? He says, "Yeah, we went over those trees, and so forth."
Yeah, that was 40 years
trees.
ago.
But the thing about Winged Foot 8 West is different. When I grew up, and in the days of, say, Doyle and Paul and Frank Quealy or JP O'Hara, or there's a guy we played with, Jamie Hinchcliffe, who hit it long, Joey McGee, the Carlucci's, the Kasikas, Mike Kasikas, most of them still had to hit a fade around it. Some of them would take up a Winged Foot pencil because they didn't have those, Chichi Rodriguez, who you played with, had those long tees.
Right.
Or just put a tee in just ever so much and tee it up as high as you could and then hit it high over the tree line. They would make that about 1 and 2. It wasn't an automatic. Those trees are not that much taller now, but it just shows you how much lower the ball flight was back then with a balata ball and a persimmon club. You really had to hit the curve left to right.
And the pros, all tee shots are easier from the pros. That's why they're pros. But it's probably an easier tee shot for those guys from the way back than it is for us from the white, because there's a little more room to get it up over those trees to launch it. And distance isn't going to be an issue for them.
And some of them might even hit a 3-wood, right, to keep it in the fairway left. If they hit the 3-woods, 290, so that would be leaving them 200 yards left for most of those guys. That's sometimes a 7 and 8 iron.
And the better players, unlike the baseball players who have turned into a bunch of, I don't know what, where they outlawed the shift because these guys, can't hit it the opposite way. A good golf pro can hit it left to right or right to left or high or low, whatever he needs to do. And just like the old Rod Carews and Tony Olivas and Wade Boggs used to be able to hit it. You want to put the third guy over there, put him over there. I'll hit it where he ain't.
Right.
Not anymore. Baseball's turned into I don't know what it is. I think they should just put the whole thing on a computer and not even bother going outdoors.
So this picture you took is great. You see so much in it. You can see the 4th East tee, the 3rd East green, 8 East green, 8 West, 8 East fairway, and the water tower. But the water tower is interesting because that's a good line for your fade. If you hit it at the water tower with a fade off this tee, you're going to be in the fairway, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And you'll often think you're going to be way right in the fairway, and you're not.
Right.
It's a very, very difficult tee shot, especially because, like I say, knowing that after the tee shot, the hole's not over, no matter how well you hit the tee shot.
Right.
The fun's just beginning. The green is awesome. It was it Bobby Collins who told us that the guy hit a draw into the back right of this hole, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah, the pin is in the back right. So there's a little spot over there. This isn't the best angle, but in the back, 25 feet to the right of where the pin is right now is a pin placement.
Right.
And the gentleman, actually Claude Harmon was recounting this gentleman from Long Island who played in the Anderson, who used to hit the ball over the bunker and he stiff it in the back right. That's
right.
talent. Yeah.
That was Claude Harmon, right? Yeah.
But when you see this bunker over here on the right, they've gotten so much harder. That pin, if you're in this front bunker, that pin location where the pin is, you might be able to get it pretty close. But if the pin is pin high to you to the left over there,
yeah, on the left side,
it's tough to get it close because it's downhill right over the bunker and it just keeps going.
You can put a ball down on the edge of the green outside that bunker, and it'll roll pretty much across the whole green, right to left.
It's also
it's always important where you leave your second shot. If you're not going to be on the green, and depending on where the pin is, you do not want to be tucked over on the right side at all because everything's going right to left up there. And unless you're Phil Mickelson, you're going to have a hard time getting it close to the hole.
Yeah, this is one of those holes. First of all, it's the #1 stroke hole. So anybody who's playing with anybody and they're a few handicap strokes higher, they're getting a stroke on this hole. Front, middle, front, left. Perfect. You're going to make a bogey at worst. You might get lucky and make a long putt, but you also can lag it up there 2 or 3 feet and make a par from that front left, just about any pin placement, right?
Yes.
Even that back one, it's hard to read, but you can still get the speed, maybe even go too far and it will come back a little bit as long as you don't putt it over the green.
Yeah, in essence, there's no time you want to be short right. It's versus short left, regardless of where the pin is.
The other thing I like about this picture is it solidifies in people's minds. Anybody that's been to Oakmont, which is a highly rated, very tough golf course, but literally Oakmont has 5 trees and they're to the right of the 18th hole, shielding the 18th approach shot from the driving range. This picture shows you it's current. I think you just took it.
Yeah, this picture's 2 weeks old.
Look at all the trees here.
Yeah.
Look at there's forests of them. And we pruned a lot of trees, especially if you look down 8, those terrible little, I mean, you probably like the apples in October. Once in a while, you got a good one, but those were weeds. We got rid of like 10, 15 apple trees over there. But look at the beautiful vistas that you get because of that. You can see the bunker on 3 East. You can see the pond.
It took years of realizing that there's a time and a place for trees, and golf courses are not always the best place. I mean, they're beautiful to have, but because they're so beautiful, the topography, the beauty of the topography wasn't recognized until the trees started coming down and you realize the land itself is beautiful. The contours of the land are beautiful. They're all pleasing to the eye. So it's a combination of things. So a beautiful tree will always be a beautiful tree, but there are places they don't belong, like on runways and right next to greens.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way it is.
Well, for people who don't play wing foot on a regular basis, you also get an appreciation of the undulations at wing foot, and you can see them in this great picture you took. There's at least 4 or 5 or 6 good from the front left. There's that little undulation over there to the back left, to the back right. There's many examples that where you just said over the bunker. If you put a ball there, it'll go all the way down, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. So that, you know, I remember years and years ago, it's got to be 20 years ago, maybe 25 now, where, you know, you'd go play a course, say in North Carolina, and you'd come back and say, the place was great. When you're on one hole, you can't see any other hole on the golf course.
Right.
Now the thinking has changed over the years, and it's like, those were nice, cozy courses and fun to play, but there, that many trees is just not good for the agronomy.
Yeah.
They steal nutrients from the grass. They're always going to win that fight. I've spoken about the tree that was behind 10 at Simonoi, that according to its height measured 100 years old, but was only 60 years old. It didn't get that big because it was, you know, eating Wheaties. It was eating the nutrients that were being fed to the green, and the back of that green was always very difficult to grow grass on because the tree was soaking up everything that was meant for the grass, for the green.
Absolutely. The one tree they were going to take down, I remember, we're not talking about One West, but if you on the tee of One West and you look out in the right center where you want to hit it, there's a tree that kind of forms this kind of A frame. And
Right.
they were going to take that down. They didn't. I'm glad they left it there because it's also a nice aim when you play 8 East.
Yeah, it's
Not 8 West,
unfortunately not in this picture, but it would be right off to the right in this
just to
picture.
the right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you could almost get it in if you had a little wider shot of this. But yeah, I think this is a great example of the thousands and thousands of trees that are at Wingfoot. While we still have, I don't know how many different vistas like this. I mean, think about the view on 6 East. You can see people putting on 3 West. You would never see that before.
Right.
Oh, look, you know, our friends are up there on 3 West and they can look down and yeah,
You
I
could see
think it's
people on 3 West from here. I mean, 3 East from here. If you look hard enough through the trees down there to the left, you can see the bunkers that are green side there, all the
you
way
can see
over.
people on the T on 3 West and almost people on 2 East. If you look hard enough, you can see the driving range pine trees, which are those are about the only pine trees left at the course, right? They have a good function there.
Yeah, they they protect the eighth the 8 East fair 8 West fairway, excuse me, 8 East fairway from guys who can hit it over the net.
Yeah. So I have to tell you a story. Many, you know, when I was a young kid, I was lucky enough to caddy for some of the good golfers. One of them's name was Billy Kuntz. Billy and Bobby Kuntz, as somebody mentioned, they played in the Masters. They played in the U.S. Open, U.S. Amateur, decorated. One was a little short on the other. Billy Kuntz had a distinction of having aces on every hole at Wingfoot. So we're on the 8th tee and he hits it off to the right in the woods. Now, twice as many trees back then. That was really a forest.
Right.
There was this little kind of doorway opening, and those days they still carried 2 irons and 3 irons, and he was a good player, decent lie. So give me the 2 iron, and the pin was about where it is here. Couldn't see really much of the pin. We could see the opening, and he hit it bullet through the opening, and it landed in the fairway about even with the fairway bunker. So maybe a good 110 yards in the green. It scooted up, went in the hole for 2. The most unlikely of
Yeah.
all outcomes, right? But he hit
He's
a
hoping he
perfect
could
shot.
save par.
Yeah, I mean, some people are like Steph Curry on the golf course. His brother Bobby was that way. You know, every hole he had a shot to, whether it was a par 3 or not, he was looking like hooping it.
Right.
And I also remember Davis Love in the PGA. He was in the left rough, and back then we had those white birch trees, if you recall.
Yep.
Tall birch
150
trees.
yard or so markers.
Well, this was a tall birch tree, and it was about 190 yards or so from the green. Now, this is how many years ago? 25 years ago, the PGA or so that he won it. He took a
97, was it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so 25 years or so. He took a 9-iron out because he had to get over the birch tree,
Mhm.
and he just boomed it over the birch tree onto the middle of the green. I said, "Oh my Lord!" Now
Yeah.
that's what some of these guys do normally from a tee on a par three. If there's a little
Right.
wind, giving him a 9-iron. But that was 25 years ago, and that may very well have helped him, have the confidence to just outpace everybody. It wasn't close. He was so far ahead, right?
Yeah. And the rainbow came out, and yeah, that was quite a moment in
It,
Wingfoot
it,
history,
yeah, it was such a big win.
in the history of Wingfoot sharing their glory with the outside world, with fans and PGA pros who, they get to play the best courses in the world, but they don't get to experience Wingfoot until, such time as a tournament gets there in most cases. So it was
Yeah.
probably very special for him, not just to win the PGA, but to win it at Wingfoot, to have the rainbow there. I guarantee you that's in the top 5 memories of his life, outside maybe personal memories, family
Question.
memories.
No question. He may have signed more rainbow pictures in his life than any other picture. Yeah. So Billy, we've got to tip our hats off to Baltusrol, another great 36-hole venue, had a lot of major championships. They're hosting the 2023 KPMG Women's PGA event. That's coming up in just a few weeks, and that'll be exciting. I know you've played that. I played that. We'll see
It's
how.
another Tillinghast masterpiece.
Yeah, and back in the day, those greens ran as fast or faster than Wingfoot, and uh, it's always a masterpiece how they play there. The big greens, some big greens, some awesome shots there. It's a big golf course. We'll see how the ladies do. I'm sure they're going to do just fine. Baltusrol has the benefit of being on a big piece of property, and they have a quarry up top where they can
Yep. Just
basically
hit these balls up into that range.
they have a great range that my friend redid from used to drive up until the hill. Then
Yep.
they redid it and they turned it the other way. And they have hitting bays. They've got a big building over there. So they're hitting balls there all year round. It's a great facility. So anyway, the eighth
But as
West.
Tillinghast even said, he was unable to select a location for the clubhouse there because of the topography of the land. So there was really only one place to put the clubhouse, and it's not halfway between the nines.
It is
like
close
it is
to
at
Springfield
Wingfoot.
Avenue, though. And maybe that was one of the things too. There was already a major road there, right?
Right.
Maybe a dirt road. Who knows? Yeah, but you're right. You're out in the middle. They do have beautiful halfway house there, so you're out in the middle.
Yeah.
You're unlike Wingfoot, where each 9 or
Yeah,
10
it comes
holes,
through there. Yeah.
every 8 or 9 holes, you're back to the clubhouse at Wingfoot.
Right.
So there's a
Right.
lot of emergency 9 opportunity and other things.
Correct.
Number 1 handicap hole. I mean, I'm not going to argue. There's, for a very good player, there may be harder holes for them, but for me, this is clearly one of the tougher holes. This in 17 West, right?
Yeah, the two of them are equally difficult for me, and they're sister holes. They're very similar in a lot of ways.
A lot of bad beats on this hole, right? A lot
Similar
of Mongolian
greens.
reversals, right?
Yeah.
Where you're
And
putting
the greens are
birdie.
actually very similar when you think about it.
Somebody could be sitting there putting for birdie and walk off losing the hole to somebody who chipped up 10, 15 feet and made par.
Right. The Mongolian reversal. Nothing like it in golf. I don't know where the term comes from. Maybe we ought to look that up.
But bad beat, though, has a terminology in that other game we like.
Bad beat. Yeah. Experienced a bunch of them in my life.
We're talking about bad beats, and I think it's time that we maybe talked a little bit about that other game we like, that game of poker, right?
Yeah. I love the game.
We have our own personal story, right? But the bad beat is when you have a hand virtually not, let's say 98%, because that would be the maximum number of advantage you could have in the game we play, which is Texas, no limit, right? Why don't you describe Texas No Limit for everybody, and then I'll describe what we're looking here with Jennifer Harmon.
I'll do it quickly because most people know it's what you see them play in the World Series of Poker on TV if you watch it. Every player gets 2 cards dealt face down. Then there's wagering. Then the dealer turns up 3 community cards. Everybody can use all 3 or 2 or any one of them that they want. More betting. Then the 4th card is called the turn. More betting. And the 5th card, the river, more betting. And at the end of the day, you use your 2 cards in any combination with the 5 on the board to make your best hand. And in some cases, ironically, the 5 on the board are the best hand. That happens rarely, but it does happen. But
Yeah.
there's all kinds of math that becomes very obvious. And if you look at the cards that we're looking at right here, the 10 and the 7 of diamonds weren't there on the flop. The 10 Jack Queen, a rainbow flop, we call that because it's 3 different suits, were the flop. And Jennifer Harmon flopped what they call a set. That's 3 of a kind. So
Right.
she's got 3 queens.
So this queen here, the Jack
Yep.
and the 10,
Yep.
she has
3
a very
queens with
good
a Jack
hand.
10. Yep.
She has a very good hand, but at this point, when you just get 3 community cards and she's got the 2 queens, she's
Right.
only got, as you say, she flopped trips, right?
Right. So it's very unlikely that she's behind, but it turns out she was behind because Zeidman flopped a straight 8-9 in his hand and the 10 Jack Queen on the board. So
Right.
Jennifer's
So that's
in
at
trouble
that
there.
point in time, which is important. At that point in time, she was behind.
At
So
that point in time, yeah, she's behind, and Zeidman doesn't have what they call the nuts, which would be a hand that couldn't be beaten.
What would be the nuts right here at the Queen
Ace
Jack?
King.
The Ace King would be the nuts. Any
Yeah.
Ace King, and people
Yeah,
do
and-
have Ace Kings at this tournament, right?
Right, and then 9 King would be the second nuts, and then 8-9 is the third nuts, and then Queen is the fourth nuts at that point.
In this
And
hand,
in this hand, unfortunately, Jen Harmon does make the full house.
right? So on the community card turn, the 4th card or 4th street or the turn, she
Right.
gets the 10. And what does she have at that point?
She's got the second nuts. Only pocket 10s can beat her. Only 4 10s can beat that hand she has after the turn.
So she's
Only
got a
4
full
10s.
house, 3
Yep.
queens over 2 10s. They get it all in. And guess what?
He hits the
she's
straight
got
flush
it.
on the river. He had that 1 out. 7 of
Queen
diamonds.
of diamonds is
1
in
out.
her hand. So
1
the
out.
only card here was the
2%.
7.
Yeah.
2%. That's why she had a 98%. At this point, with 1 card to go, she had a 98% chance. And
Only
she lost.
X-ray vision saves her.
That was the first example with Jennifer Harmon playing Corey Zeidman, and she had to be figuring she's got this hand locked up. This is another interesting bad beat that happened.
This is the worst bad beat in the history of poker because of the situation. This is the very first hand of the World Series of Poker where you pay $10,000 to get a seat in this tournament. Your very first hand, and you're this Hudson kid, and you flop a 10s full of aces full house against an aces full of 10s full house. It's absurd. It's an
Let's go back
absurd.
a second. So Oliver Hudson,
Yep.
Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's son, good looking guy.
Yep.
Got 2 10s here. And with that 10, he's got a full house. He's got 3 10s over 2 aces right there at this part here at the flop.
Yep.
And that's when they got it. That's when he went all in, right? And
Yep. And
Sammy
Farhas
Farr,
got the stone cold nuts at the flop.
he snapped cold. He
Yep.
snapped cold.
He can't lose.
The very
Imagine
first
you're
hand.
sitting there, you pay $10,000, you're in the World Series of Poker, and your first hand, it's like, I'm going to double up. I flopped a full house. And the other guy's like, no, you're not. I'm going to double up because I flopped a better full house. It's unbelievable.
There's
It's a hand
guy-
that,
yeah.
unbelievable. And Sammy Farha, famous for having the cigarette unlit all the time. You can see how happy he is there. He's not even have a cigarette in his mouth.
It's in his finger. It's in his hand though. And
Yeah, it's in his hand.
but this is a setup hand. If you ever saw anything that was the edge.
So if
of
you
the
saw this in a
hand-
movie, you'd say, forget it. You know,
Yeah. This is
like in Casino Royale, where Bond is supposed to be caught by a fake tell by the guy with the blood eye,
yeah.
who has 4 jacks, and Bond thinks he's bluffing. So he calls a big bet, but
The chiffre,
the Lashif, yeah.
the chiffre.
But Bond had aces full of kings. He it was a bad beat. It wasn't a bad call. It
Yeah.
wasn't like he got outfoxed.
Nobody ever is going to
There's
turn in
only
a
the
full
one hand
house.
that can beat him. Anybody in the world would have called.
This
Anybody.
hand here, this hand here, though, of Phil Ivey, Daniel Negreanu, Doyle Brunson, if they had the tens in this
No,
situation, they're getting their money in because
yeah.
they know there's only one hand that can beat them. There's only one hand, and it's the ace 10. They don't put the other guy on that.
I was in a game recently. I witnessed a hand
There
where
you go.
one of the guys had pocket sixes, and the flop came 6-4-4. So
Holy cow.
he flopped sixes full of fours, and the betting goes back and forth between. I was in the hand. I flopped four to the nut flush, so I called his bet, and the third guy called his bet, and the turn was a blank. Didn't give me my flush. The full house bets again. I'm still figuring I
A
can
big
if I
bet,
can
right?
catch this if I can catch this diamond or I forget what suit. You know, I'm going to get a big pot. And this guy calls, and when he called, I was like, that bothers me because what can he have? And then the river was another blank. I missed the flush. He makes a big bet. I finally fold, which I should have done way long ago because as
2
the
weeks
plumber
ago,
and
you should
Teddy
have
have both
done.
told me,
You
do
should
not chase flushes with a pair on the board.
you should have been in that hand in the first place. You wouldn't
No,
have touched your grain.
I just padded the pot for them. And this guy ends up going all in. And of course, the six is full. There's a snap call and runs into pocket four. So this guy flopped quads. One guy flops a full house, one guy flops four of a kind. And he asked me afterwards, what did I do wrong? I said, nothing. Phil Hellmuth, Daniel Negreanu, Sammy Farha, you name them, is never folding that hand on the flop. Never, never. Unless you actually show them you caught four of a kind, you can't fold that hand. Can't be done.
Now, when you're playing in a tournament, it's elimination. Oliver
Yes,
Hudson, he's out.
he's gone.
Yeah, in a what we call a cash or a home game. Those are cash games where you
Just buy more chips and
you
keep
put
playing.
up so much for so many chips,
Yeah,
and when you're all in, whatever's in front of you. Say you and I are playing, whatever in front of me, and I make the bet, and you put me all in, and I snap call. That's for all my chips.
right. It's called table stakes. You can never bet a guy out of the hand because you have more money than him.
Right.
If you have $50 left and somebody bets 300 at you, you can call for the 50. You don't win the 300. You can only get $50 in his bet. But that's table stakes.
It's not
in
like
the movies they like to monkey with that.
They're not putting the what was it
the car keys.
The car keys, whatever car that was, or in Cincinnati Kid, Edward G. Robinson goes in and gets a whole stack of it. I guess they had rules there. If you had it on you, you could bet it, right?
I've seen it in a couple of movies, and I think they do it for dramatic purposes. But anybody as good as the Cincinnati Kid or Edward G. Robinson in that movie would not be playing poker for anything but table stakes because all it takes is a guy with $6 million to win the hand.
That's right.
I'll bet 6 million. There's no way the other guy can call. He doesn't have 6 million. He can't borrow it. It's a nonsensical way to play cards if you're not playing table stakes.
Yeah, so hopefully we've given you a little education on the edgy cases, and in almost every situation, bad beats are big pots. In the case of a World Series of Poker, it's an elimination of a guy. So if you started out with 100,000 chips and he had 100,000 chips and it's the first hand, now you double it up and that guy's down the road. In the case of a home game, it's whatever money's in front of him, and he's belted. Billy, this has been great. 8 West is tough. It's given us a lot of bad beats. Hopefully we tied it in with poker to make it interesting.
Get back to you on Warner Brothers 100th next time around. This is the worst bad beat in the history of poker because of the situation. This is the very first hand of the World Series of Poker where you pay $10,000 to get a seat in this tournament. Your very first hand, and you're this Hudson kid, and you flop a tens full of aces full house. against an aces full of tens full house. It's absurd.
Thanks for joining us
Casper.
today.
Billy
We
Harmon,
really appreciate your
Double
feedback.
Indemnity,
And please
Arky,
subscribe to the
Two
show
Outer,
and hit the
Claude
bell
Harmon,
icon so you get notified
Movie
of
Classics,
new episodes.
Mark Gable,
Hit them
Odd
hard
Job,
and hit them often.
Best 36 Holes.